And it's been great for the developers and the publishers because they're seeing in some cases they're transacting like 25 to 30% of their business now on these web stores with a savings of about 50% on the monies that they're paying in fees. So it's becoming a very successful means for them to make additional money.
Yeah. And I thought of quite an interesting macro question here, because one of the trends I've talked quite a lot on this podcast is that everyone keeps saying that mobile is dead and basically IAPs are decreasing. But I think that's basically disingenuous, because I've worked with a couple of developers where significant amount of payments are actually driven now by webshop, and there's no tool that currently tracks it.
It's 4 a.m. and we're rolling the dice. Mate drops, knowledge made of golden eyes. Felix with ads making those coins rise. Jack up designs, worlds chasing the sky. We're the 2.5 gamers, the midnight crew. Talking UA adverts and game design too. Mate, Felix, Shaka, bringing the insight. We're rocking those vibes till the early daylight. Mate, UA, master eyes on the prize. Tracking data through the cyberspace skies. Felix stacks dollars like a wizard in disguise. Jack up's crafted realms, lift us to the highs. 2.5 gamers talking smack. Slow hockey stick, got your back. Ads are beautiful, they light the way. Click it fast, don't delay.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Matej Lančarič.
And I'm Felix Broberg.
And we are your hosts. And today we have a very special guest, David Stelzer from Exola. David, welcome to the show. Can you give us a brief introduction about yourself and the company that you are?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, my name's David Stelzer. I'm currently the president at Xsolla. Xsolla is a company that many people have associated in the past as being a payments company, but we've really evolved over time. And I like to call us now, we're more of a monetization company. What we do is we help game companies make more money from the games that they're making, and then we help them keep more of the money that they make through our products and services. And just a little bit about me, I've been in the games industry for close to 30 years. Used to be an attorney. I was general counsel for SEGA way back when. I ran the games practice for Creative Artists Agency for about 6 years. Was really big into helping game makers kind of put their studios together, find their projects, find their funding, and make sure that they had a path to get their games made. And then for the last 8 years prior to being at Exola, I ran the Unreal Engine business for Epic Games, and been here at Exola for about 1.25 years now.
So, David, you're an OG, huh?
Yeah.
Been around for a bit. Yeah, it's interesting because this brings me to a different part of the games making cycle, right? Like I've been involved in all these things from the beginning of getting things made all the way to the publishing function and getting them out the door. But this is like the after release life of all these things that we're talking about around monetization and how the games make money and stay alive.
Since you've been around for such an impressive career, just before we get started with the report, I'm just curious to ask, like, since Sega, Unreal, all this, like, what kind of are some meta trends that you've seen throughout your career, maybe that you're seeing right now repeat itself, or basically what's different now before we get started?
Some things are different, some things are the same, but like going back that far, you have cartridge-based games moving to CD-based games, moving to, what could be done with like a modem making like these clanging and binging noises and what you can play versus full-on internet digital delivery of games, and then moving from genres even or hardware is probably the better way to put it, right? The ability to go from playing on a computer on a floppy disk to, having games that you can download digitally, to mobile games, to handheld, and all of these things that come with them. Mobile was really the one that I first saw the biggest changes in the way that business models kind of went. It was the first time that it was different than you're just buying a game off the shelf somewhere and you own that game and you play through it. Now you had, compulsion loops, and you had invite your friends, and you had the invention of microtransactions and all of these things. And that was a big sea change. And then seeing things coming out of Asia with service-based games doing a similar thing, but on PCs to really prevent piracy was really the first means of why that was being done. I lived through the building and the launch of Fortnite at Epic. And that was like a crazy rocket ship going from 300 people to 6,500 people. Watching I can't say that it was probably the invention of the Battle Pass, but the first time where I really saw the Battle Pass blow up as something that became a standard for business in a lot of this space. And now that latest fight, which started while I was still at Epic and is still ongoing, saw Tim Sweeney at GDC last month, and we chatted briefly, trying to blow up what's going on within Google, within Apple, for fighting for the ability for game makers and publishers to not have to be stuck in that loop of paying 33% for the privilege of hosting your game there. And Epic's doing an amazing job of that, and that is really legitimizing a lot of the business that we do at Exola for off-store payments and other types of means of monetization, which we'll get into later as we talk.
Yeah.
But those are all some fairly big changes over the years.
Also, David, you mentioned that you're going to, like, in terms of the Xsolla, kind of more towards helping developers with the monetization rather than just being a payment provider. Can you unpack that a little bit? Because that's really interesting.
Originally what we were there for was for this really started as a company where our founder, a guy named Shurik, was in a little town in Eastern Europe and was not able to pay for games so easily. No credit card. How do I get the games that I want? And created this business of finding ways to get people to be able to pay. And so what we call alternative payments, right? If you think about it, like a WeChat Pay or PayPay in Japan is another good example of that, or any QR code payment type systems, gift cards, et cetera, et cetera. All these methods where people are not using a traditional Visa, MasterCard, American Express. How can we help you as a game maker or publisher to find a way to collect money from people who want to pay you, right? And so over time, that's evolved into we have thousands and thousands of users. We have very happy customers on the payment side, and how can we help them make more money? And we'll talk here today about web shops and subscriptions and things like that. But those are two of the things that we help to power. So the creation of web shops, the running of web shops, which is basically an alternative store for your game in particular or your games, subscriptions, that ability to keep people on a monthly payment where they get a value for that money every month, gives you more predictability in your revenue and what you're doing. And all of these things happen off store and direct to consumer. And we'll talk a bit about what hybrid means in that setting. But what these off store things do, which is great, is it allows this direct relationship with your consumer, which game makers haven't had in forever. Like even on Xbox and PlayStation, that's the gate right there. The player has the relationship with Xbox. They have the relationship with PlayStation. And the relationship has been with Apple. The relationship has been with Google. And having these web stores gives you that direction of like, hey, you don't have to buy over here. Come buy over here. We're the actual game maker. And if you come here, we'll give you a reward or value for being here. And in doing so, they pay, and that money goes more so to the game maker / publisher because they're not paying a store fee. They're paying our Exola fee. They're paying the cost of changing money, et cetera, et cetera. And those fees can be about half or less a lot of the time than what they would pay on a traditional store. Plus, they now know who their user is. And they can have dialogues with these users. They can A/B test what kind of offers are working. They can have direct dialogue of what do you like about the game? What do you hate about the game? What would you like to see in the game? If a game is popular enough that it has a life in linear, this would be a great place to engage with your consumer, push your linear model with them as well. One of our cloud-based products gives you the ability to put your cloud streaming directly into your web page. And so there's another place where you can engage with that audience. So we'll give you the shop, we'll give you the place to kind of have that relationship, and then it's up to you within your marketing and what stories you tell and how you want to tell them and how you want to engage with that audience to make that your home as a game maker or publisher.
Yeah, the report that you pushed live for Q1 2025, what we want to talk about a little bit, it kind of highlights obviously the rise of web shops and direct DTC sales, which makes a lot of sense. Can you go a little bit more into towards like how game developers can successfully implement? Yeah. successfully implement direct to player monetization kind of strategies in 2025? Because I mean, there is a lot of chatter about it, but still, people don't understand that much.
Now, I mean, look, by launching proprietary web shops, which we will
Yeah.
help them build,
Yeah.
and selling content or currency that's outside the traditional app store, you get the developers having the ability to bypass those fees. Like we said, they get to gain more control over their own pricing, their own promotions. They're not driven through what the app store is doing. And they, like I said, they build that direct line to their audience. And so direct to consumer is what we like to call that side of the business very clearly. And what this does is it opens the door for a bunch of things. So now you have CRM strategies that you can use. You get all the data that's coming in that you can use to personalize offers. You can create rewards. You can create loyalty programs. And in essence, you get this seamless cross-platform experience, right? Now, it's not to say that it's just you put the web shop up and people will come, right?
Yeah, because that's what people think.
Yeah, it definitely takes a strategy, and we help with that strategy. We help to understand through our other customers what's been working, what's not been working for different people, and it's different for different types of games. So you basically have to train your group of UA people and your marketing folks of how to work directly with an audience as opposed to with a platform, number one. And then number two, you're doing a real psychological retraining of these players, right? Because the player base, the easiest no friction way to do this if I'm playing my game on a phone is to just transact on my phone in the game, right? But what we start to do is we start to move that player base with something compelling or something that catches their attention, gets them moved enough to push on something and take them to the web shop. And when they're there, then the developer gives them enough value or something to delight them enough that they want to transact there instead of going back to that game and transacting. And so hopefully you give them enough time that you build a habit, right? They say it takes 30 days to build a habit. Well, you keep giving them that reason to come to the store and get more value and more value. And then essentially what you have is a group of people who play on their device but pay on the web. And that's the way that we like to think about how to move that dynamic around. And it's been great for the developers and the publishers because they're seeing in some cases they're transacting like 25 to 30% of their business now on these web stores with a savings of about 50% on the monies that they're paying in fees. So it's becoming a very successful means for them to make additional money.
Yeah. And I thought of quite an interesting macro question here, because one of the trends I've talked quite a lot on this podcast is that everyone keeps saying that mobile is dead and basically IAPs are decreasing. But I think that's basically disingenuous, because I've worked with a couple of developers where significant amount of payments are actually driven now by web shop, and there's no tool that currently tracks this. I'm
Yeah.
just,
So
yeah.
macro, you are correct, right? IAP and mobile look like they're dying if you look at the trends. Micro is where you'll find that there are successes in the space, right? There are people who are evolving. There are people who are figuring out what works for their game and they're tweaking things that are out there, right? You know, our most successful customers, I would say, like in our list of top 50 earners, they're all mobile, you know.
Wow.
And as a result, that means that they're doing something right. And one of our bigger customers, who I won't say who the name is, but I can say that they make some of the biggest games in the world. I can say that they have taken an all-in strategy on direct to consumer. And what that means is that every one of their games has a direct to consumer side. They have a direct to consumer hub where you can go to get access to those games and things you want from those games. They have people who are solely dedicated to the direct to consumer process. So they've gone all in on this. And as a result, they're seeing massive amounts of money coming from this side of their business. Like it's a real portion of their business where when you have that kind of success, those folks will tell you, if you don't do this, you're leaving money on the table as a
Yeah.
game maker. And how
Mm.
can you, if you have investors or board members, how can you look them in the eye and say that you're doing everything you can for your game if you're not doing this?
Do you see any any big, or not any big, but any differences between the actual genres? And I mean, you mentioned that there is, it's case by case, and we've heard that midcore is doing better. I mean, also social casino is doing quite well, but they've been doing this for years anyway. Is there a way for casual games how to make more money on the direct to consumer?
It's hard for casual games. I think there's a
Okay.
future. I think there's a future coming where casual games will be able to get more of that. But yeah, midcore, social casino is definitely winning more, I would say there. You've got the problem that on midcore, you have battle passes, you have IAP with a very engaged audience that's looking to spend quite a bit of money, or they want things that other people don't have. Casual is more like, I almost finished this level, could I get a little spiff or something that would help me do it? It's a little bit more play to win, which is not what a lot of the folks who are coming over on the website are looking for. But as we start to develop new products, like how does ad monetization fit better in on a web shop, things like offerwalls, right? So we
Interesting.
just launched our offerwall product, and you would think that it's a little bit outside of like the casual mindset of, play, repeat. But if you still get casual grinders, right? And those casual grinders want more for nothing. And so here's something where we want to keep you. We're going to offer you this reward here on the website that we're not going to offer you in the game, because now we can kind of get a better understanding of who our spenders are, who our non-spenders are. And so I think that you'll get some folks, if they have the attention span to engage in it, it's a good way to bring back in these casual players, because it could be things in an offer wall, like a slot machine mechanic, play this and get your coupon for Walmart, and in return, here's a number of gems that will give you, more for your game on a casual front. So I think there's a path to casual having a way back in. But I think part of the problem too is like not as many casual games are being made because there's been such a casualty within casual.
Yeah. And you
Great
mentioned,
soundbite.
yeah, yeah, that's very true. And you mentioned battle passes and season passes quite a lot. So do you think that that's kind of the way to go for the revenue driving, like for 2025, and subscription on the side as well? Like what
Yeah,
do you think about it?
I mean, I think subscription battle pass is kind of the same thing. When you buy a battle pass, it is your subscriptions.
Yeah, yeah, fair.
You know, Subscriptions and season passes, they're no longer, as we talked about in the beginning, they're not experimental anymore. They are primary to many games and how they make money. Fortnite is another great example there, where the battle pass is really what drives so much loyalty and so much return. However, I don't think that they'll totally replace how we layer monetization. I think you still need a full stack of monetization, particularly where you have genres with strong player retention. You need to offer something that's really like the win-win that players get, the consistent value, the exclusive content, the sense of progression. While studios can benefit from that, they'll get more stable cash flow, deeper engagement. I think they like to say more stable cash flow, deeper
Yeah,
engagement, but that's the positive, but it also gives you the negative, right? Because what you can start to see is, are we losing engagement, right? Are we seeing that a number of subscriptions decrease, and what can we do to counter that, right? And that's great, because it's more than just the day-to-day of like what I have to look at from a 90-day player retention or a 7-day player retention. I now have something like deeper than that, that I have really engaged players who were paying for something that stopped now. How do I work directly with them? Going again to your direct to consumer strategy, I can contact them. I can give them special offers, like what would it take to bring you back? Retargeting, that's another big thing, that works very well when you know who your subscriber base is.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess what you're saying is also that the UA managers are now need to evolve a little bit again, and not only
They
think about
do.
the yeah.
No, because personalization becomes key here, right? Surfacing rewards or content that reflect what the players are interested in, their play style, etc. And the retargeting firms are really good at helping with that. But it's not just about like throw up a subscription or a battle pass and again success. These things need to feel like they're enhancements and not obligations. You still need to be able to have that mechanic where I can play and grind and do all that. This is just like, I know I'm going to get cool shit every month, and it's always going to be there for me. And then I've got bragging rights over things. I don't want to be the grinder every month, right? So what we do see is the best performing models here are the ones that are treating players like members and not
Yeah.
like customers.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to shift the gears here as well because you guys sit at such an interesting point in the market. If you deal with monetization, right, you see a lot of success cases, what works, what doesn't work. What kind of should international players think about or publishers think about if they want to expand to APAC? Everyone's kind of cracked the US market. That seems the holy grail, but basically there's a lot of money being spent in APAC as well.
Yeah, it's not just APAC. It's also, I think APAC and LATAM are two to really talk about because for the West, APAC is definitely, I think, underserved, or I'd say even like they just don't understand how to
Yeah.
engage best with that audience to fully extract what they can from that audience. So we look at those as high growth regions: APAC, Middle East, Africa, LATAM. And those are requiring like really strategic approaches that go beyond the simple things. So the easiest thing is like localization, changing up language so that people will have the ability to play the game in their language. But sometimes we're even seeing like in APAC, like China is a good example for this. In LATAM, there's certain places where they, and especially in the Middle East, they want a cultural change within the game too. So how do you tweak the game for certain culturalizations? How do you make it friendly and appealing to all the different places where that game is being played? Now, sometimes it's a full redo of a level or something for that particular region, but sometimes it's as easy as, the skin for this month is something that fits culturally within a region. And you'll see like it doesn't really sell in a lot of places, but that region where you targeted it, through the roof sales, right? So that's one way to go. Localizing your payments is another thing that
Okay.
really needs to be done. And this is going back to our old school business at Exola, right? So in terms of payments, we're partnered with over 1,000 different payment partners. So what that means is wherever you're selling your game, wherever your users are, we probably have some sort of payment solution to help them pay the way that they want to pay, right? And so you shouldn't have the problem of I don't have money to be able to give you because I don't have the right instrument to make that happen. That's the benefit of using Xsolla. And we're adding more and more PSPs or payment solution partners every month. When I started a year ago, I think we were at just around 700 PSPs, and now
Okay.
we're well over 1,000. Also helps a ton, by the way, when you have a way for everybody to pay.
Yeah.
You'll see less and less cart abandonment, which is a big issue.
I'm just curious, just to follow up on that. So web shops, that your OG business, as you called it, right? Do they actually get localized as well for the different regions, or what kind of is your
Yeah, we
recommendation
can
around that?
we can have the web shop so that they're localized. All of the payment methods that you want just are magically there because the back end of that web shop
Nice.
has the store built in, which is PayStation, which provides the access to over 1,000 payment partners. What it also does is it gives you the protection on the compliance side. So, if you were selling something all over the world, you need to be able to know the tax rules wherever you're selling. You need to be able to understand payment rules. You need to be able to understand how much money needs to be set aside. You need to be able to understand fraud. You need to be able to understand bad debt rules, etc. We do all of that for our customers on the payment side. So we act as what's called the merchant of record. We are the ones, if you get a receipt for a certain game and you see Xsolla on that receipt and you're like, I didn't buy Xsolla. That's that's actually us getting in front of the game maker, doing all of that work for them, right? So that we made the sale for them with the PayStation. In the back end of PayStation, all of that compliance work is being done. Our fees are extracted, the currency transactions are happening, and then we remit back to the game maker or the publisher the amount that they're owed after that. And that amount ends up being usually less than the fees that they would have paid elsewhere.
Also, talking about the language and the localization in these like regions like APAC, Middle East, LATAM, is there like an connectivity, mobile connectivity issues or anything that 5G networks can improve on, or is there any effect in terms of the game monetization or business model, or how should developers think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
It's getting better, I would
Okay.
say. So in LATAM in particular, you used to have last mile problems all over the place. Same in India. You had really strong fiber up until you got into like the neighborhoods, and then it was like a rat's nest of wires, and like all of a sudden activity went away. you had payment issues because a lot of the payments were direct carrier billing. And so it just became part of your phone bill and became very expensive. That's more so in Asia and India where direct carrier billing happened. What 5G I think is doing a lot of is helping to solve the piece of number one, I don't have to worry about that last mile problem at home because that's usually where this was happening on a PC. I've got better reception on my mobile now or mobile connected device wherever I go. And so with more bandwidth, I should have the ability to play more games. I should have the ability, and game makers and publishers should have the ability to utilize cloud streaming a little bit better, right? Because with 5G being on a phone or let's say even on an iPad or something like that, you still have limitations on storage. You still have limitations on RAM, processing power, the things that make a cool game really hard to do locally on that device. And so cloud can be really helpful there. And I think we're starting to see, the limitations of cloud in a couple years will continue to get better and better over time. I think for now, one of those great things to be able to do with that, with 5G, with cloud, is to be able to serve up a level of a game or serve up a game where you can play and jump into it for the purpose of being able to buy it somewhere later. There are certain cloud services that are doing a good job, like xCloud from Xbox, but they own a massive cloud, and it's much easier for a company like that to worry about how they fix latency issues and deal with things and the delivery of that to 5G. But everybody that I talk to on those fronts, that is a topic: cloud, 5G. How do we make those things work more seamlessly? How do we make it better for game players?
There is also another thing that everybody's talking about, which is AI.
We've
Yeah.
gone 30 minutes without talking about AI, which is quite impressive.
I was so happy. And now you've gone and done it.
No, but I think except like everybody's talking about AI, I use AI almost on a daily basis for the creative production, for
You design your new tattoos.
also
and
tattoos. Yeah, exactly.
Rumor has it that Mathieu
Yeah,
is actually
I'm
not
an
even
AI
a real person.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I have an AI avatar of myself actually. So that's an interesting thing. But I want to ask about if you as Exola using AI for any types of processes or anything that is closer to developers, and obviously like developers are using AI for any type of like content generation.
I mean, there's no doubt that AI is definitely, transforming game development, monetization. It's working with player engagement by streamlining the content creation, enhancing personalization, optimizing live services, etc. In development, we're seeing, AI procedural content generation, that it can reduce production costs by automating level design and PC behavior we've all seen now. Asset creation, allowing smaller teams to build more expansive worlds, and tools like AI-assisted animation and voice synthesis. For what we do on the payment side, we don't have a ton that I would say works within this, but we work with a lot of companies for sure that are using this. Some things that we're thinking about around monetization is more AI-driven dynamic pricing.
Okay.
How do you do AI predictive analysis? Personalization of those offers that we talked about can be driven through AI, and tailoring in-game purchases on player behavior by learning those behaviors through models that you build specifically for a particular game.
Nice. Okay.
We also have, for a while there have been AI-powered chatbots, support systems. I think that's pretty well accepted at this point in reducing operational costs. And they also help to improve a little bit of player retention along the way as they're doing that.
Also, talking about the data and analysis and anything that you can use AI for, obviously all the games are being kind of data driven, and there's like you need to make decisions based on data. And you mentioned some big games making 30% of the revenue on the side, which is amazing. Any other kind of KPIs that you think studios should monitor closely, or like making decisions when they want to go to the web shops, or like anything that you can share?
There's one in particular, which is that using a web shop correctly with a really good testing group, with a really good UA group, with companies' data like AppsFlyer for showing you how your money is being spent. If you are not doing those things well, then you're not properly optimizing. And that is where margins are lost and won right there.
Yeah.
You have better control over that optimization and that margin flow, when you're doing something that's direct to consumer. So for now, we're talking about web shops. So in doing so, like I said earlier, you need to have a very well-built web shop. That web shop needs to perform, number one, technically as you expect it to do. It's going to have the beautiful things on it that you want. The store is going to be embedded within it. The content that needs to be served properly. It needs to not crash, right? And then that payment flow needs to look just like your content. It shouldn't look like I've been sent to a cash register somewhere and I suddenly am taken out of the experience of what I do. And then on the back of all of that, like, how did you drive people there? Okay. How much did that cost to drive them there? Once I had them there, how long did it take them to make decisions? Did I have the right content in front of them? Did I test to make sure that for these particular users, I'm putting the right things in front of them? And being able to look at that data, and going back to AI can be really helpful here too, because you're building essentially LLMs for your games. Those are the way that you can get down to the real micro of razor thin margins that make the difference between winning or losing here.
Yeah. And how does that exactly work, right? When you get started with a web shop, usually what would you recommend there to get started? Like, is there a starter kit, or is it just putting your own content there? Or how do you actually
There's a
make it
couple ways you
beautiful?
can go.
Yeah.
When you work with us, I should say, there's a couple ways you can go. So some of them are as easy, and this is totally crazy easy, but like
Just
I
good.
like
That's
easy.
good.
I like
Yeah, that's
easy.
how it should be.
we have a solution called the Instant Web Shop, where literally you put the art into an app, and within 5 seconds, you have a web shop spun up for you. Now, granted, it's not the most customized or anything like that. It will look like whatever it is you gave us, but it will automate spawn a web shop. Usually the way we work with our customers is they say they want to make a web shop. We work closely with their teams to build that web shop and customize it with the features and the look and feel of what they want. And then we train them on how to market it, how to do UA with it. We show them best practices. We show them what's worked with others. We show them what hasn't worked. And usually they'll go and they'll run with that. And if they're successful with it, we may not hear from them other than to say thank you. If they're not successful with it, they may come back and be like, like a kid with a toy, this thing's broken, it's not working. It's like, okay, well, let's take a look at this. Like, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And then we'll find ways to help them do that thing better. But we're very, very hands-on with our customers, or hands off if they want us to be, but many of them appreciate the help, and we're there as a partner. The way our business works, we only make money when they make money. It's not a fee-based thing where you pay us up front for the web shop and we do a transaction. Here's your shop. Thank you very much. We're on a percentage basis.
Thank you very much. See you never.
Yeah.
We're on
I'm
a percentage basis. So our interests are really aligned that, they succeed, we succeed. So we're there for them.
So I'm just curious, you might not know the answer to this, but like if you do an auto web shop or the auto built one, right? And then actually you start tinkering around and working with a client and they actually spend time optimizing, how much better, if that is the baseline, how much better are those web shops performing as a percentage?
I don't have an answer for that, but
Yeah, okay.
my guess would be in line with the fact that really paying attention to how you operate the shop is what's really driving the better revenue and the better margin, that you're probably eking out some sort of better even with an instant shop, just by the sake of having one there, that even if somebody stumbled onto it, it's revenue that you get incidentally. It's revenue that is more in your pocket than in somebody else's pocket. But I'm not sure how much better one does than the other, but I'm pretty certain that the more customized ones are crushing it compared to the non-customized ones. Now, that's not to say like you couldn't spin up an instant one if you're on the fence of like, I don't know if I have the time for this or what this is really going to do. Spin it up, ask us some questions, we give you some help, and then you're like, I see the potential here, and then you scrap that one and put a new one up that we've helped you build and maintain.
It's better to start with something, Felix, right? And then go from there. So at least you have some baseline. You mentioned you share best practices with the developers, and I assume you also do a lot of like A/B testing of the conversion rates and like all how the web shop actually looks like, can convert. Can you share one or two tips that you usually say to your clients, like, hey, obvious things like this button needs to be here, like kind of like something like this?
Yeah, well, there's some stuff like it's here in my notes, just so you know. But in 2025, because I'm not so deep into the tech side of that
Okay.
where I work day to day on these, but I do
You
hear back
shouldn't.
from.
You shouldn't. You need to sleep at some point, right?
Yeah. But it's telling me here that in 2025, studios should really focus, and this is going back to the AI a little bit, but it is relevant to what we're talking about. 2025, studios should focus on practical AI adoption
Nice.
without over investing in hype, leveraging AI for, and then we get back to this, A/B
Yeah.
testing
Very
for
cool.
LiveOps. So those two things are very important
Yeah.
for us within the web
It
shop
it
environment.
makes sense.
Doing plenty of automating your localization and enhancing recommendation engines for in-game stores. So whether or not you're using AI, those are things that are necessary for your web shop right there, right? You want it to be localized for everybody who's coming. You want them to see it in their language. You want the recommendation engines that are coming in to be as personalized as possible. AI is great for something like that.
Yeah.
Over time, right? Because it has to
Sure.
learn. Studios are also going to be experimenting with AI driven user acquisition, using machine learning models to optimize ad targeting
Okay.
and community engagement in a privacy compliant way. And that's key. Privacy compliant way, right?
Of
What are
course.
the ways to do these things in a privacy compliant way? So we can figure out some workarounds as humans. We can utilize AI to do a lot of different A/B testing to see what works around compliance and what does not. It also should be noted that like developers, AI is not the answer to everything. It's
Of
not,
course. Yeah.
not like we'll just AI it and it'll be awesome. You know, you still need human oversight in AI assisted design. You want to avoid the pitfalls that are there, over reliance on procedural content. Smaller game developers tend to do that a lot, where it's like, we don't have a big team. What are we going to do? We'll just make everything procedural. AI will be great for that. And then, you know, you end up with like funky dog trees that just spawn everywhere. It's
Yeah.
like, this doesn't even look like my game anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the best thing about the testing, the direct offers, and this ability to have this dialogue is you really get to understand your player base, right? And you really get to understand what moves them. You really get to understand what repels them, and what do they want from your game in particular. And it's going to be different for different audiences. Like a cozy game maker may get, you know, commentary from their audience about, oh, this would be even better if we could do this, and then they do it because they know that the community is going to engage in that. Whereas like on a big midcore or hardcore game, it's like, can you just make the missile more powerful so I can blow up the ship? And you know, it's just a general comment that doesn't really move the needle for the community. But hey, if I got something that I'm building, I now know in my database I've got this consumer that I'm going to target them for this particular offer. And so all of that stuff helps to power better monetization at the end of the day.
Yeah. Also, so actionable game plan for 2025. So if you were to suggest like one or two things like actionable that like developers or game industry people should take into 2025 based on your reports and the findings, like what should they do?
Yeah. So for me, you know, build a web shop
Absolutely.
and learn how
Thank you
to
very
do it.
much. Yeah.
That's number one.
Exactly. No brainer.
To me, that's super important. And then, along with whether you have a web shop or not, the idea of data driven monetization becomes super important for this year. So, as games become more data driven, you know, what are the key metrics that studios monitor closely in 2025 to kind of gauge their health? And so, how can we, as Exola, assist in turning player data or behavior patterns, purchase history, into actionable revenue growth? And by the way, to answer your question, I'm speaking on things that will help people make more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Just not the games industry in general. This is
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I have to sell your audience on something here. But yeah, those are two of the areas and they work really nicely together, right? So what this can do for you in the gaming landscape, you know, because it's so competitive right now, improving data retention, increasing LTV, maximizing monetization opportunities, this is what becomes really important. And the most important metrics for the studios that are trying to track include, you know, average revenue per user, customer lifetime value, as these are really good indicators for the long-term profitability of the player base. And then you want to look at things like the conversion rates, whether you're converting things from free players to paying players, etc., one-time purchasers to multi-time purchasers, all of those things. And data is precisely why we partnered with AppsFlyer to help enable better decision-making through data.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So, any message for our audience besides that? Well, you have to build the web shop because obviously, like that's a no-brainer, and we need to have an actionable data so companies can make more money. Where can they approach you, or how they can reach you out? Like where, like what are the best places to do it, David?
Yeah, I mean, we are here at that stage within your game where you're thinking about wrapping up the game, getting ready to take it to market. If you go to Xsolla.com, Xsolla.com, you can find information about our products and services. And there's a contact us piece there that will get your information directly to one of our business development folks. They work by region. Wherever you're at in the world, we've got somebody to take care of you there.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna post a summary of the Exola report for Q1
Yeah, that would be great.
2025.
Here below.
Be in the link is going to be in the description. I'm going to add this podcast episode as well, and all your information where people can find you. David, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank
Really
you both
appreciate
for having me. Yeah, it's finally good to be here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
very much. Cheers,
All right,
guys.
have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Bye, gentlemen.